The following episode is brought to you by Poison City Brewing, proud makers of Durban Poison Cannabis Lager, the beer that invites you to live your poison. Going on myself, Nasipi's Wine back again with another episode of Sludge Underground. I'm very excited. It's been a while since I've been on the show, and it is only fitting that, with me coming back after a few episodes gone, it's coming back with a bang, because this artist that we've got today, he's really special, he's really phenomenal. My introduction to him was sort of through, I got the highway mail and I saw and yeah, man, was blessed enough to get him to come on the show. So I'm not going to say any further. I'm going to let him introduce himself, and then we can basically take it from there.
Cool. Hi everyone, my name is Seb Goldswain. I have the immense honor and privilege, I don't know how, but I do, of playing the guitar for a living. So I'm a professional musician. I play guitar. I went to university for 5 or 6 years and studied jazz. And so I grew up studying classical and then fell in love with rock and roll and blues, studied jazz, now I play fingerstyle guitar. So whatever that means, but yeah, I'm fortunate to do what I do.
Yo, that's incredible. And I remember, I just want to go back to a conversation that we had before we started recording, and that, you went to Kearsney, and we're obviously still going to talk about how that sort of had an impact on your life as a musician. And you did mention that, prior to going to Kearsney, you hadn't really been playing sort of an instrument and whatnot. So when you look back, to your sort of high schooling career, how vital or how pivotal was it, you going to Kearsney College and you sort of, learning how to play the guitar, or rather, how did Kearsney College sort of shape you as a musician?
I would say it shaped me fundamentally, in a very real sense, fundamentally. Because I had no experience with music at all. I'd never seen a live band. I'd never really seen live music at all until I went to high school. And the school has a great reputation for their school choir. And the school choir used to rehearse every single day. And the school, the Kearsney choir, won the choir Olympics and went overseas and won competitions and world renowned, and had videos with huge amounts of hits on YouTube. Well, they do now. They didn't back then. YouTube wasn't a thing back then. And so I went to this place, and suddenly I went from nothing to being in an institution where there's a huge focus on hard work and excellence. And so we would stand at choir practice for 2 or 3 hours at a time, and we would just be drilled into shape until we got stuff right. And that sense of hard work and diligence paid off dividends. And I think we went to the World Choir Games when I was there, and we won 3 gold medals and a silver medal, and got to go to Austria and played for 20,000 people, and everyone was screaming, and we could see the effects of hard work. Years of hard work had led to paying off much later. And so I saw the benefit of hard work over a long period of time. And when I got close to finishing school, I said, I don't want to give this up. I don't want to go do something like engineering or architecture or something, which are all great professions. That's what I was considering at the time. But I decided I would prefer to stick with music. And I'd been doing guitar up until that point. So I kind of stuck with it. And the ethos and the work, the work ethic that the school had given me kind of just stuck with me after that, and in a totally different style of music, of course, because once I finished, it went from being like the Lion King type of choral music to jazz and pop and rock and playing with orchestras and all sorts of different stuff, but the same work ethic stuck, I think.
And you mentioned something really important then, that you then continued studying music further and stuff for about, I think you said 5-6 years or so. And how was that sort of experience, going from Kearsney College, and deciding that what, music is what I want to do full time, and then deciding I want to study it as well. So how was that whole experience for you studying music? I mean, how much of it, how different was it, sort of transitioning from, the musical sort of stuff they were teaching you guys at Kearsney to what you were then studying?
It was a different world. It was a totally different world. You kind of went from music that you would be hearing in Broadway plays and musicals and places of high society to suddenly hearing the music that you hear in KwaMashu, and like the play, that you hear in like the local black church and stuff like that. And it was a fundamentally different experience, and it opened my world to a whole new like world of artists and music that I'd never heard before, and it was very humbling. So I thought I had a good sense of what music was, and I thought I had a good sense of how to play music. Then I get to university, and there's guys who are younger than me, who've been playing for less time than me, who are twice as good as I am. And they grew up in KwaMashu and Phoenix and stuff like that, and they were kicking my butt already. And so it was really, really humbling. I don't think musicians have to go to university. It depends on you and where you're at. I think you don't need to study necessarily at university, but you do need to have the skills that university gives you if you want to be a professional.
And obviously, bro, like when I look at a person who's sort of in high school and transitioning to varsity, I'd like to think that parents or guardians or whatever the case may be might have a bit of a say. When you took the decision to be like, I want to study music, how was the sort of feeling back home?
I reached the decision personally a couple of months before I told anyone. And then I just had to have the courage to tell my family, because they'd made sacrifices for me to go to a great school and all of that. And I was worried that I would disappoint them. But eventually I plucked up the courage. I told my dad, and he was 100% supportive. I grew up in a home where my family always said, you must follow your dreams. If you follow your dreams, then it's like you won't have to work a day in your life, which is half true, because it's still hard work. But at least if it's something you love, then it gives you the incentive to get up and work at it each morning. And so I went to him and I said, well, I've found my dream and I want to follow it, and I want to do music. And he said, good, excellent. And so they were 100% supportive. We spoke through it, and we agreed that the best thing to do would be to study up to university level, because then even if the performance thing didn't work out, I could then have a qualification that I could teach with or do other things with. But he was 100%. My family were very supportive of my career, and they still are. They're still 100% behind what I do.
And having made this decision now to basically study music, and you've got your qualification and everything, now sort of making this a living, are there any challenges that you've sort of encountered while trying to do that?
Yeah, absolutely. I think probably the biggest challenge is just having to fall into the having to come to the point where you realize that this is a job just like anyone else. You don't escape music. You don't escape to a music career so that you don't have to work. It's in a sense a 9 to 5, just like any other job. You have to wake up. You have to work hard. There are elements of your job that you don't like that you still have to do. You have to pay tax just like everyone else, and there's all these things that come with it, and I wasn't really expecting that. But yeah, it's just a normal job, and as you come to as I came to experience it, that was a hard thing. I think maybe something else was you kind of go through ups and downs in your career. At some points lots of people have interest in you, other points people don't hear about you, and you won't gig for a couple of months or whatever, and you think your life's falling apart, that kind of stuff. And it can be a challenge to maintain discipline while things are going well. Don't spend all your money while you're earning the money, and then don't be discouraged when things are low. And just over time it evens out. And John Mayer also said something to the effect of every fourth album he releases has a hit song on it. So he's mostly a failure too. But I mean that lovingly. But that's something that I didn't really expect, was the kind of the up and down part of the career. And as a musician, for the times when say for example you're going through a spell where people aren't really sort of engaged and you aren't maybe getting any gigs and whatnot, how do you sort of sustain yourself as a musician? I just view that as constructive downtime given to me, and in a sense it's a blessing. It's a time when I get to reevaluate my music. I get to think about the music that I'm playing, take time to look at myself from a more objective point of view, and to perhaps reassess what I can change, what I can make better. So practice more, write more songs, and use that time to change my website and change my photographs and do the other things that I otherwise wouldn't be able to if I was busy all the time with gigging. And you mentioned something very important there, and that change your websites, photographs and whatnot. This sort of gives me an impression that
music would sort of also include, sort of like a business side of things, would you say that, it's very pivotal or very important for someone to have sort of, some business know-how when it comes to, them sort of sustaining themselves as a musician?
Yeah, absolutely. I think more so now than before. I think the traditional model with musicians, from the 40s and 50s onwards, was that you would have a record company, and the record company would assign someone to you, and they would take care of your business. You would have an accountant, you'd have someone who would do your tax and your contracting and that side of things, and the artist was just left to focus on the music. And I think now that's changed. I think musicians are in a point, because of the internet, where they have to be, pretty knowledgeable about every area of their career. So whether it's production, recording, composition, the online social media thing, your money, you have to be aware of all of it, I think. And I think it's a good thing. I think so. There's less chance that someone can take you for a ride and steal all your money if you know what's happening with your financial life. So I think it's a good thing.
Yeah. And are you sort of managing everything by yourself, or is there like sort of a team? Do you have someone maybe managing your social media, or like is everything like what's the situation behind that?
I am doing most aspects of my career at the moment. So far, I have a booking agent in Germany. Shout out to Dominic Adelbert, and Dom's helped me with my website, and he helps me by booking tours for me. So he helps me on the booking front and with the online stuff, and the rest is all up to me.
That's incredible, man. And so would I then be correct in saying that your booking agent is from Germany? You might have played a couple of shows maybe overseas?
I have played overseas, not in Germany. So Dominic's actually from Cape Town, and then he moved to Germany, and I had the privilege of playing in Mobile, Alabama, in August last year, playing in the South. That was quite different. I've been overseas. I've been to the States 3 times, twice with an exchange program at the university, but it's still like an untapped market mostly. So that's something I'm itching to get into, is performing overseas. I'm
very interested in that trip to Alabama, man. How was it for you? How was the experience? How are the people there that sort of listen to music? What was the turnout like? What was the crowd response like? And sort of how was the sort of crowd reaction, when you compare it to, South African crowds?
Yeah. Well, it was different in one sense because it was a Sunday morning in a church. And it was quite a conservative church. So men in suits and ties. It's the South, man. I'd say the main thing that struck me about people in Alabama and America in general is how deeply rooted music is as a part of their culture. So everyone is very aware of like the great American tradition of music. And so I would play songs that I could play here in South Africa, and most people have never heard them before, but I play them in America and everyone is really, really familiar with them. And also the fact that I'm from Africa, they just loved anything African you throw at them. So like it's funny in South Africa, if I say, if I want to play a song by Lyra, like white people are like, we have never heard of Lyra. Lots of them, and yet she's like one of the biggest artists in the country. Yeah. Or you say to even a lot of musicians, like if you heard of Becky Mseleku, an amazing jazz pianist. He was like one of the best jazz pianists in the world, and I think he's from Umlazi. And he's amazing. So if you go into South African jazz circles, they like revere him. He was like one of the greatest pianists of all time in the world. That's saying something really amazing, and most people have no idea who he is. So in terms of taste and stuff like that, South Africa is still quite a lot more segregated than like America, for example, and that shows in how crowds respond to music. And now, looking at you as a guitarist now, what would you say makes Seb sort of different from other artists who might be maybe doing sort of a similar thing to what you're doing? Maybe the likes of like Guy Buttery or whatever the case may be. What sets you apart? That's a really good question. Something I haven't put too much thought into. I would say a decision that I tried to make about 5 years ago with my performing career, that I don't think necessarily all artists have made, is I decided that when it came to my performances, the primary goal of every performance was to make the audience happy. So I saw a saxophone player a couple of years back, great saxophone player, called Andrew Young. I actually played in his band a couple of times, and I watched him perform, and I noticed that he always made the point of not trying to show you how good he was, or choosing songs to show you how hip he was. Like, he knows this dope music that no one else knows. He always chose songs that would make people happy. And so that might make me a little bit different, I suppose. As I work hard, I still practice an hour or two every day if I can. And I purposely go to shows. I will do anything to make people, like, I'll hit my head in the microphone if I have to. I'll mess up. If it makes people laugh, or if people enjoy it, then that's fine by me. I'm happy to entertain and make people happy at my expense.
Yeah. And are there any other sort of artists that you're inspired by, when it comes to doing what you do?
Absolutely. Too many to mention. I think some of the obvious influences that people might pick up is an Australian guitar player called Tommy Emmanuel. So he's like, he gets voted the best acoustic guitar player in the world every year, and he's got this unbelievable reputation. And he's a huge influence on me. I strive to be like him a lot, I'd say. So I've learned a lot of his pieces. The style, the way I play is undeniably influenced by him. And just, he's a huge personality on stage. So he comes out and he entertains everyone for an hour or two, and that's very much something that I try to strive towards.
And you as a musician, is there, just looking back at your sort of career, are there any, or rather, is there anything that you'd say you wish you sort of knew when you were sort of getting into the music industry that you sort of didn't know back then?
Sure, these are good questions, man. If I was to think about it, I'd say from a music perspective, so I mean, I could give like life lessons that I wish I'd learnt younger on. Sure, there is stuff like that, and maybe there's still stuff that in the future I'm going to learn that I wish I knew now. So I don't claim to have it all together now by any means. But if there's one thing that I wish I could have learnt younger, that would be as a guitar player to keep better time. So you're a drummer, so you know the importance of keeping time. And often guitar players want to have hot licks and hot tone and stuff like that. And they fail to work on their timekeeping and to develop a good sense of groove. And that is something that every day I sit and work with a metronome, because I wish I'd started that younger. I mean, it's not a big, huge, life-changing lesson, but guitar players work with a metronome. That's the only thing I can think, yeah.
No, that's really solid, man. And I just want to touch on a little point that you actually mentioned earlier about, when you went overseas, and you mentioned, playing at the church down there. And even today, we're recording this episode in a church. So how much, how much of an impact does sort of spirituality and church sort of have on you, not only as an artist but as a human being as well?
More and more every day in ways that I don't understand yet. Jesus, for example, said, "I am the way, the truth, and the life. No one comes to the Father but by me." And I believe that the guy who made me is absolutely worthy of my life and of everything. So that fundamentally changes the way I view everything. So I don't, even though I'm prone to still being selfish and desiring my own selfish things, more and more I realize that it's better for me if I submit to him and what he wants. So he is the one who has blessed me with the career that I've got. He's the one who's given me the talent. He's the one who's given me the life I have and the job I have and everything like that. And so if he's given that to me, the best possible thing I can do is to want to give it back to him. So, like I said just now, I believe that, in my performances, I want to make everyone happy. I believe that we live in a dark world, a sad world, a hurt world, a broken world, where people have a lot of pain and suffering. And I believe that the gospel of Jesus Christ is the solution for the world, that God came into the world, that he died on the cross, forgave the world of their sins. And you can have everlasting life. You can be forgiven. And I don't believe that in like a weird airy fairy way. Like, I believe it's like a historical fact, man. It's like it's undeniable. That's what I believe anyway. And so I believe that if I can help people and point people towards Jesus and what he's done, then that's the whole goal of everything I do.
Is that an element you could also maybe see during your live performances in any way?
Not necessarily explicitly. Sometimes, because it's like, if you're a plumber, I use this example, if you're a plumber and you go to someone's home and the pipe is broken, like, don't tell the guy to pray to Jesus for the pipe, just fix the pipe, man. Right? Just do your job. So I kind of view my job in the same way. I mean, I'm happy to talk to people if anyone asks, But if I'm in a secular environment, I'll just entertain. That's kind of my job. I don't try and turn it into a sermon or anything like that. Unless people want that. That's happened too. And then I'm like, okay, cool, let's do that.
No, that's perfect, man. That's really beautiful. And, I just want to sort of now focus a bit on your music now. Let's talk about, any projects that you might have released. I actually took the initiative to actually go on iTunes and whatnot, and I found 2 gems on there. Okay. I think it was the one was in 2015 and the one was in 2019. Cool. And these are 2 projects of yours that actually, when I listened to, I was actually shocked, because when I first saw you on the Highway Mail, like the first thing that came to my mind was like, okay, cool, he's an acoustic guitarist and he probably sings or whatever. But then I listened to those albums, and I was surprised when I heard that. It's just like, it's amazing. It's just you, the acoustic, guitar and whatnot, and sort of just enlighten us more on any of the music that you've released in the past, any projects that you've had in the past, and sort of what was the inspiration behind them, especially the one that you released in 2019. I just want to see how sort of the growth was from your first one to the one that you released last year.
Yeah. So in 2015, that was my final year at university, and I had decided up until that point that I wanted to be a performer. And I said performers can't perform unless they have an album. Like, it's like you can't, people don't want to book artists, from out of town unless they've got reason to book them. So if I was touring an album, then people would want to book me. So I decided I needed to make an album, but I had no idea what kind of album I was going to make. My favorite band when I was at university was a southern band from Florida, actually, called the Dixie Dregs. And if you don't know the Dixie Dregs, you got to check them out. So the guitar player, Steve Morse, is my all-time hero. He plays for Deep Purple now, but his band when he was in varsity in the 70s was called the Dixie Dregs. And they're my favorite band, and they were really weird, like really eclectic. Like, they would do country music and rock music and like chamber music, like Baroque music, and just all sorts of everything, and just mix it all together. And so finishing off university, I was like, I'm going to make an album like that. So the first album, Pictures of 1,000 Words, was exactly that. So it's like a really eclectic album. It's got country music on it. It's got like Afro jazz on it. It's got like full-on rock, fusion, jazz, acoustic music. I'm trying to think what else. Like 80s heavy rock. It's got everything. And I was just like, I'm going to make it all. I'm just going to put it out there and see what people like. And so I did that, and by far the best response I got was for the acoustic music. Wow. So people really like the acoustic music the best. Yeah. And so the second album, called The Road Ahead, that one I decided I was going to make an album of solo acoustic music. There were 2 songs I couldn't help myself. I had to have a band and a choir singing on it and everything. So there's full production on 2 songs, but the most of it was solo acoustic, and that's what I've done. That's what I tour with now. I make jokes at my show, but I had to figure out ways of making money, so I had to stop playing with a band because I had to pay the guys. I was like, I can pay the drummer or I can pay rent. Yeah. So sorry, man. And the acoustic thing just worked so well with that. And I could get like a really full sound from one acoustic guitar, and hopefully still entertain people. Without having as many expenses, if I could put it like that.
And the 2 tracks that you mentioned there are the ones where you sort of work with like a choir and whole ensemble and stuff. Like, do you ever play those tracks live at all? And if you do, sort of, how do you work your way around that?
Yeah, there are a couple of ways that I'll navigate those kinds of songs, because like you can't play it all. If there's layers of stuff, you can't play it all on one acoustic guitar, even though I try. And so one of the ways I'll get around that is with a looping pedal. Like, I'll just loop stuff on top of each other. But that's not my preferred method. I feel like it's cheating, even though it isn't, but it's just an artistic boundary that I set myself. And then, like, I think the big song on The Road Ahead is a song called Wayfaring Stranger. So that's the one. I got a friend of mine, Gary Nixon from the Kickstands, to come and sing that, and he sung that in my office right next door here. We recorded it in there, and he did an amazing job. And I can't sing like him, but I do try and sing it live. So I just strip it right down live to one acoustic guitar and voice. And if Gary's around, then and Gary often we do the same festivals and stuff together. So if Gary's around, then he'll just come on stage and sing it with me.
That's incredible, man. And when it comes to sort of performing these albums live and whatnot, which sort of performance would you say stands out to you, looking at all the gigs that you've played, the one that you look back at and think, I really had an amazing time there?
There are 2. and they're both playing at high schools. Interestingly, so I think it was 2016. I got to play at Michael House.
Wow.
And so I know what boys' schools are like. It's basically like prison, you know. And the boys are not polite, and they are not generous to people who wish to entertain them. Like, you got to entertain them, and it better be good.
Yeah.
And so I went on stage knowing that. I was like, it's me versus them. You know, I've got to win them over. Otherwise, this is going to go really pear-shaped. And so I went on stage, and I just started playing. And by the end of the night, they absolutely, like, they just loved it. And I loved it. And it was just such a great sense of synergy. And at first, they weren't too sure of me. And we had to work, like, there were a couple of, performance tricks that I had to do to try and win them over and stuff like that. But it was just one of the most memorable nights of my life. And then similarly, playing at Treverton College, that's a boys girls school, boarding school, so it was amazing for a different reason. Like, they were just like, it was a night of no homework, and they were like so happy not to be working, so they came down to their school hall, filled the place up, and we just had absolute, like, a ball for an hour and a half, and everything I played they sang along with. And it was amazing.
Yeah, that's incredible, man. And obviously, when it comes to sort of, any future gigs that might be coming up, in actual facts, I should be doing this at the end in terms of where people can sort of, catch you. So I think let's just come back to that. For now, like we're near the 30-minute mark, and just I always want people to sort of have something to take away from the episodes, people to learn, and whatnot. And for someone who sort of looks at Seb and is like, man, I want to be like Seb one day, someone who aspires to be, what you've become, as a well-renowned artist, what sort of advice would you give to that person in terms of how to sort of, survive being a musician and to sort of, follow your sort of footsteps or blueprint in a way?
For young musicians, the same advice I've given to all my students over the years and to anyone who asks is, you mustn't expect to be the greatest you're going to be by the time you get to 23. Lots of people have stars in their eyes. They finish high school and they think, I want to do music. So then they start a band and they put all their money into a band, and the band might do really well. The band might get like a single on 5FM, and then suddenly they get asked to play at all these festivals across the country, and people know who they are. And then, like, they do that, and then after 4 or 5 years, 5FM gets tired of you, the festivals get tired of you, and then you're 23 or 24 and you're like, what happened to my life? So, and I've seen that happen with a few people, just in my own experience already. And the goal must not be, for me anyway, my advice would be, don't aim to be your best and your most famous by the time you're 23 or 24. Aim to be your best when you are 75. Wow. So you want to be like, you don't want to do this for 5 years and give up. This is like, you should aim to be like a legend. Like, not aim to be a legend, but aim to grow and mature and shape your music and refine what you do over 60 years. Like, that's the goal. There's nothing like going to watch a guy who's been doing this for 60 years, a guy who knows how to entertain, a guy who knows how to write a song, a guy who knows how to sing and how to play his instrument. After 60 years, it's just, there's nothing like it. It's like fine wine. It gets better with age. And so I always encourage young musicians to have a long-term perspective on their careers.
I think that's some of the best advice we've ever had on the show, actually. So that's really special. It's very unique. I've never heard anything like that. So that's, props to you. And obviously, it's a new year now, 2020. What are the plans?
Well, I've already toured Cape Town this year, so that was fun. That was exciting. I'm going back to Cape Town next month. I've got Splashy Fen. I'm hoping to get to the Europe and States to perform to Europe and the States to perform at some point either this year or next year. Release another album. That's kind of the plan so far. Is just keep pushing away at it.
Can you give us any dates maybe in terms of the album release, if any, and also any gig dates that you might have coming up?
Album date? No, I don't have any. So nothing like that. In terms of gigs, on Friday the 28th, I'm playing at the Stonehouse Kitchen in Bothers Hill in Hillcrest, which is, you got to do an audience. So I'm playing there this Friday. It's going to be awesome. After that, I think there's Splashy Fen. I'm playing at Splashy on the acoustic stage on Sunday evening. They've got me right after a legendary band called Clout. I don't know if you know Clout, but like all your parents will. From the 70s, they had a song called Substitute, and it was a huge hit. And so I've got to play solo guitar after this huge band. So there's that. I'm going to be in Joburg in May for the annual SA Guitar Expo. One of my sponsors, Guitar Gallery, always bring me up for that, and I get to play some of the best guitars like in the world for them, and that's always fun, and you get to meet some of the best musicians in the country at that. And I think that's all I've got. That's definite so far, at least off the top of my head.
That's incredible, bro. I really hope that people do turn out and pull through to the shows and whatnot. And in actual fact, I'm going to be releasing this on the 28th. So technically, if someone is listening to this on Friday, tonight is the gig.
Book now. You better book right now.
Definitely. And yeah, man, before we bow out, any final words, any shout outs you might want to give, to your fans, people that love you, or just shout outs to anyone at all, man, or any last remarks that you might want to make. This is your chance.
Yeah, absolutely. I do want to thank, I've kind of mentioned them already, but my sponsors, Guitar Gallery and Stefan up in Johannesburg. They sell the best guitars in the country. You should go check them out. And my local sponsors, Marshall Music Hillcrest, they are amazing with how much they help me out, and I appreciate those. Across the road, literally. I appreciate those guys a lot. Dominic, my booking agent in Germany. My wife, who supports me and loves me with everything I do, and my family.
That's nice, bro. And we like to do this thing on Sludge Underground where we basically close out, with one of your tracks. Before we get to that, I just want us to sort of close out. This episode will be available on iTunes. Obviously, it's Sludge Underground Podcast on iTunes, and obviously also on SoundCloud. It's Sludge Underground Podcast. Facebook, find us Sludge Underground, and obviously on Instagram as well at Sludge Underground. On Twitter at Sludge031. Now we've come to the final part of the show. Your song. Which song are we closing out with? And before you give us that track, I want you to sort of inform the people where they can get in touch with you online as well.
Yeah. So I'm on all social media, all major social media anyway. So like Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and then my website, www.sebgoldswain.com. You can contact me through there. And I think that's it as far as social media goes. And the song is, the song we're going to play is Wayfaring Stranger. That's the song with the choir. So if you go listen to it, there's like a big choir. That's me. I recorded myself 80 times singing all the choir parts. No narcissism, I promise. And it features my good friend Gary Nixon with on vocals. He's amazing. And it's not a song that I composed. It's like a slavery American traditional standard song. And I love that song so much, so I arranged it for band. And I had some amazing, phenomenal musicians playing on it. And I think it came out sounding really good.
That's incredible, bro. Listen, Seb, thank you so much for coming through to the show. Really appreciate this opportunity. For me, to me, you really just are larger than life. I really appreciate that I actually got a chance to learn more about you as an artist, and I really hope that just going forward, everything just goes super well for you, man. All the best, and thank you so much once again. Guys, please enjoy the track. You heard it here first on Sludge Underground. Don't forget to go check out Seb tonight, playing in Hillcrest. You said where did you say you were playing again, bro?
The Stonehouse Kitchen in Bothers Hill.
Epic. And what time should people pull in?
Music starts at like 7 p.m. and tickets are free. Like this is crazy, but tickets are free. You have to book, but tickets are free, so totally worth coming to.
Sweet, guys. Okay, guys, enjoy the track. Until next time, it's bye for now. Whether a dream should sleep, going home to see my father. I'm going home, no more to roam. I'm just going over Jordan. I'm just going over home. Every trial, this form should rest beneath the sword. I'll drop the cause of self-denial and enter in that home with God. I'm going home to see my Savior. I'm going home, no more to roam. Going
stranger traveling through this world.